Hello viewers, Super GT here. Let's get back on with the career mode, and we've done the Formula 2. It's time to do the big boy racing now in Formula 1, and by big boy we mean the greatest driver of all time, Taaha, over here. Look at him. He just knows how good he is. He's so confident about his ability.
Oh hey, you're here. I'll catch up with you. Sorry, I'm just on my way out, but your workstation's at the back over there. It should be all set up on the network, but let the guys know if it isn't. From there, you can access all the you need. Get yourself settled, and then head out to practice when you're ready.
I think Ericsson hit us.
Welcome to Melbourne and the inaugural event of the F1 2019 Championship season.
And finally, Devon Butler. Now, Devon was a bit of a controversial figure in Formula 2 last year. He racked up a lot of penalties over the course of the season, including one where he collided with his closest rival. It was an arsey clip. Now, certainly after the event, they were nothing but professional in terms of how they spoke about the incident with Devon, but it's hard to imagine them being as polite about it behind closed doors.
Bloody Devon Butler, eh? He's going to be #1 aim to beat this year, and if I have to punt him off at every opportunity, then I'm going to do it. Now, in terms of the practice programs, you can see this one didn't go too well as I got caught up behind Kvyat at the end of the lap. But in terms of these, I don't think you really need to see all of these for every round. I'm basically going to try and get all of them. I'll very quickly show.
That's fantastic. You obviously have a really good understanding of this circuit.
He's telling me I have a good understanding of the circuit, apparently. But I'm going to try and get all of these. I'm not going to show them all the time though, as you kind of get the gist of what these are. Now, I went for the qualifying simulation and I couldn't actually get it done. Although Devon Butler and Taaha 1 and 2 is just a sign of an interesting battle to come. Forget about Mercedes. It's all about Devon and Taaha. But ultimately, we move on to qualifying. Now, this was the positions just before my final run. So sitting 14th and 16th, myself and Roman Monjean. So not great, because the main aim really for Haas is to be in the top 10. I think the aim they set me is to be 10th. So I've got to do a little bit better than that. So we're going to go for a run here of the circuit, coming down towards turn 1, braking just before the 100 board, at least I do anyway. And then just carrying the speed through turn 2, DRS zone, down towards the third corner. And again, looking for that 100 board, which tends to be the board you want to look for. Have to be really soft on the brakes. Now, F1 is not a game that I'm normally playing, so it really does take a bit of adapting to. And the main thing I noticed really just how sort of soft you have to be on the throttle, on the brake, on the steering. You have to be really gentle on everything. You really have to nurse the car around all the corners, into the corners, especially on the brakes. And then just as you get slower and slower on the brakes, you have to release the brake to make sure you don't lock up the inside tyre, which is really easy to do when you're not playing with ABS. So through the fast sweeping chicane there, you can actually gain loads of time. And it's one thing I notice in most F1 games actually. You can actually always gain through that chicane. It doesn't matter which F1 game it is. The AI seem to always be slow through that specific section. So the second to last corner, really difficult corner. In fact, the last corner is really hard as well. DRS zone as you exit, and over the line we go to set a 125.8. So, okay, not the greatest lap of all time, but it's actually very close in that midfield. Only a 10th off our teammate. So that's kind of good going into the race. So not the best result, but kind of happy with it. And losing to the Monjean actually on the rivalry breakdown.
Once again, Anthony Davidson joins me for the race today, and it's a race where anything can happen as the rain is falling, the rain is falling, the rain is falling.
So unfortunately, I have basically done 0 wet weather practice. So I'm going into this straight at the deep end. And hopefully not literally the deep end. Hopefully there isn't enough standing water to go underwater. But away from the line we go for our first race in Formula 1 of the F1 2019 career mode. Let's hope it lasts more than 4 episodes this time around. As we got through the first corner, sitting in 15th. Russell on the right hand side. We do not want to get stuck behind a Williams. The mobile chicane. That is George Russell. Not that he's slow, just the car. Down towards turn 3, very slow around the outside of Lando. Bit of contact, but we get the job done. You can see just how little the visibility is. I can basically see nothing. I'm just guessing where I'm going as we come down towards the next turn. In fact, it does help actually that you've got the names above the cars. You can actually just rely on looking at that instead, as that doesn't seem to be affected by the wet weather or by the spray. So up into 12th place, myself and Grosjean have gained a couple of places.
Well done, mate. Nice start.
So good old Gunter will be pleased. Up the inside, so there are traction zones where they do seem to be quite slow in the rain, and that seemed to be one of them out of that corner before. And Grosjean not really getting a good launch at all off the corner. I get the traction down a lot better, move up into 11th place. So lap 1's actually been pretty good here. And it's kind of characteristic, really, of the way that I qualify and race in most games, actually. As the qualifying performance not quite there, but then in the race, normally moving forwards. That seems to be the case already. Sergio Perez there sitting in 10th at the back end of the points, with Devon Butler, of all people, just in front. Valtteri Bottas, the pole sitter, getting away early doors in the lead and setting the faster lap on the first lap. Coming down towards turn 1. A little bit too late on the brakes, missed the apex by quite a bit. So of course any of the brake references that you've been using in the dry, you do have to scale those forward a little bit and brake maybe 25 metres earlier than you normally are used to. By lap 2, onto the back of Perez, looking into turn 7, he covers it off and not quite able, was that turn 9? Not quite sure. Maybe should have researched that before I commented. Perez again, you can see they're out of that corner at turn 10, they actually quite slow off the turn, and you can out-accelerate them and get the move done on the way out of the corner, which is quite unusual, but I suppose in wet weather, actually in wet weather it might be more usual. So Perez right on my tail again, so I'm going to have to go to the inside to cover just to make sure he doesn't quite go for that move, block him off, and I think it is quite easy to defend into a lot of the corners. Just cover the inside, the AI will most of the time just cover to the outside and won't be able to go around the outside in most cases. So we can switch our attention to our arch nemesis, our big rival, Devon Butler. There he is right in front of us. It's actually pretty cool that we have driver swaps in this game. We have a few different names in this season. So Weber just in front of Butler. So myself, Butler and Weber sitting in 8th, 9th and 10th, and all new from the F2 season previously, getting into good drives actually. Racing Point, Renault and Haas. So straight into the midfield for these three. Coming down towards turn 3. Again, looking for that 100 ball braking just before it. And just almost locking up, just releasing the brake. It's actually better probably to release the brake than to lock up. We'll hold up here behind Daniel Ricciardo.
Tyre condition seems A-OK to us on the wall here. Let us know if you feel them going off too much.
So Ricciardo actually, at his home race, not having a good race at this point here. I suppose 7th actually isn't too bad in a Renault. As the top 6, quite easily just pulling away the Mercedes, the Ferrari, the Red Bulls, Formula. That's actually Formula 1. We're in Formula 1.5 here. Again, this is becoming our trademark move here as we go past our big rival, who is no doubt triggered right now, as we move up a place and demote Butler down to 10th. We can now go about switching our attention to Weber, who was our teammate in Formula 2 in the previous season. So can we go about getting past him? So it seems to be a little F2 reunion here at the beginning of the season. Valtteri Bottas out of the race, and he is on the left hand side there, so yellow flags covering that. When we get through that, can we again go for our signature move coming out of turn 9/turn 10? Looking for it going in, he kind of half covers it. Don't really want to go for the move from that far back. Let's see if he does get a slow exit. He does again get a slow exit. So we're going to go for that ERS deploy, whack it up a little bit, up into 4. So I've mapped my buttons on the wheel. I've got ERS up and down, I've got fuel mix up and down, so I've got very quick shortcuts to press those buttons up and down if I need them.
It looks like we'll be running on a dry track soon. Back to dry shortly.
So Jeff notifying me the track is going to dry, and that kind of just puts me off going to turn 1, braking a little bit too late, and it puts me on the back foot against Weber again. But unfortunately for him, he's not quite able to get the power down enough, as perhaps if it was the Canada 2019 Grand Prix stewards, might have got a 5-second penalty for that. But unfortunately on this occasion, it's not them. So, everyone going into the pits here, and I kind of just missed it, to be honest. But we go past up to second place. So teammate in the pits, Romain Grosjean, pretty much everyone has gone in, which is kind of weird actually, although Verstappen has stayed out. So Verstappen stayed out, I've stayed out. So I've actually moved up into second place at this point here, of course, courtesy of not pitting. But we'll see exactly how that pans out. Now this lap is always going to be quite tough as the tyres are kind of worn and the track is drying, and the Inters do need a bit of moisture to really operate at their full potential. You see they're just having to lift quite a lot. Normally that's completely flat out in the dry. But here, really struggling. And really struggling through that one as the car gets really out of shape. And again, coming through the last sector, it's not going to be the best in lap of all time. Might be the second best though. As we come through the second to last turn, and we're going to pull into the pit lane onto the right hand side and put on the pit limiter as we go into the pit lane. But obviously didn't do it enough, or didn't slow down enough, and we get ourselves a 5-second penalty and probably about 1 million points on our licence. So tacky, just doing tacky things basically as we exit from the pit lane. How is that going to affect us? Of course, 5-second penalty, quite major. We can still race quite hard. I've gone for the hard tyre, which is quite interesting. I'm going to try to go to the end of the race.
Look after these tyres now. We want to finish the race on this compound.
As Jeff does, we're going to try to go to the end of the race without pitting again. Bit of contact with Ricciardo as I exit the pit lane, and I didn't actually come off the limiter early enough, so I really need to practice my pit stops. My pit entries, my pit exits wasn't really up to scratch at all. Tacky, just taking it too easy really. In practice, just sitting on the yachts with all the babes when he should be practicing the pit entry. You know, he's just soaking up all the glory at the moment. But he needs to get his head down and get some practice under his belt. So a bit of an unusual strategy here compared to everyone else. Everyone else going for the soft tyre. Presumably going to go for that second stop later on. I'm going to try to go to the end on this one set of tyres, which is kind of the norm these days in Formula 1. Just trying to get one stop and no more than that, as you normally just lose out completely by going for any more than one. So Ricciardo up ahead, and he is just going to pull away slightly from us, as he should do on softer tyres, much softer tyres. And at this point here, the track is still, it's not completely dry, it's still a little bit damp, so our lap times aren't really that great at the moment. So still lapping in like the 130s, when normally in a dry lap you'd be in the 120, mid 120s. So Grosjean actually gets past us. There's not much we could have done about it, to be honest. By this point, Ricciardo's actually on the back foot. We do get a radio message that he is. We got a message that Ricciardo has some sort of engine problem. So Grosjean gets through. I need to follow him through as quickly as possible just to minimise my time loss. I'm going to look for the position down into turn 3. Just half covers it off. There was space. I could have gone for a lunge of the century. Decided against that. So we're just going to have to play it safe a little bit and sit behind. So of course in Formula 1, you don't want to go for mega dive bombs all the time. Unless of course your name is Daniel Ricciardo. But for now we're just going to sit behind, be a little bit more patient. And make sure we don't risk any silly damage to the car. And coming out of this corner, coming into the right-hander of turn 9, just getting the job done on the brakes. So out-braking the last of the late breakers, Daniel Ricciardo, getting the job done up into 8th place. So he's certainly having some problems with his engine.
Seems they fixed whatever the problem was. They're coming back up to speed.
And then just as I do that, the engineer tells me that their problem is kind of gone. So he's just going to come straight back at me, which is kind of inconvenient. as now you see exactly that is happening. Coming down the main straight, I'm going to cover to the inside line and cover the right hand side. He's just on my left hand side by side round the left hander of turn 2, almost off the track on the exit, and he just gets the job done. Good battling between the two of us. Can I get it done into turn 3? No, not quite. So Daniel Ricciardo back through on full engine power. It's a good little battle between the two of us. Kind of shows you the AI, you can have a fight with them at some places. So a little bit later into the race, lap 15 now. It's now Butler on my tail. But in fact, at this point here, he just jumps into the pit lane to dump his tyres and get a new set. So that frees Raikkonen to now attack me. And I'm always going to be on the back foot with hard tyres up against soft tyres. So coming out of the final turn, lap 16 this time around. And you can see just how close Ricardo is getting, sorry, not Ricardo, Raikkonen is getting as we come down into turn 1. And I'm going to cover him off again. It's very close, but you can see just how fine the margins are compared to the Ricardo overtake. He just wasn't quite alongside enough compared to what Ricardo was. And that's the difference between the two of us there. So at this point here, you can see the gap between myself and the cars behind. Maybe, let's say about 7 or 8 seconds at this point here. Lap 19 of 29, 10 laps to go. And it's really just a case of managing that gap, trying to keep it as large as possible, but trying to manage all our resources. We've got the fuel and the tyres. So George Russell was out of the race, and that's of course going to have massive repercussions on the world title race for this year. Absolutely unbelievable drama.
We're leading our teammate by 4.2 seconds.
So leading Romain Grosjean by 4.2 seconds. Here is the gap at this point. And with our 5-second penalty, that is not going to be enough to keep him behind. So at this point here, he is going to beat us. The real danger is trying to keep Perez, I think it's Perez, yeah it must be Perez, in 9th place at bay. So we need to finish at least 5 seconds ahead of him. And then we should hopefully, or we will, keep 8th place. So we're in P7, P8 because of the 5-second penalty. And they're just managing a 5-second gap back to the 9th place Perez, whose teammate Weber up in 6th place is having a very good race, who's a good 20 or so seconds ahead, and we're not really anywhere near close enough to go for any kind of challenge on him. So the race is actually quite spread by this point. Lap 28 coming up to the final lap of the race, managing the fuel rather well, managing the ERS rather well. So just a little bit over on the fuel. We can kind of use that at the last part of the lap. But then ERS down to about 20%. Well, you might as well start using it up by the end of the race. As you come up to turn 1 of the final lap of the race, hitting the apex quite nicely. By this point of the race, actually really comfortable with the car. The first few laps on these tyres were actually really difficult, especially because the track was still partially wet or just quite damp. By now the track is fully dry and we are lapping below 1 minute 30s, which is pretty good. And we are on the hard tyre, worn tyres as well. So getting below 130 is okay for me at the moment.
The car ahead is 22.6 seconds.
The gap ahead, 22.6 seconds. Quite a big gap that. So no chance, unless there's some sort of late mega crash, am I going to gain any positions. So again, the main consideration as Vettel wins the race actually. So well done to Sebastian and Ferrari for finally doing something good. As we come up towards turn 11, sorry, not turn 1, turn 11, turn 12, fast sweeping chicane. And looking at the map, Perez is actually a lot closer. This actually going to go right down to the wire as to whether or not I'm going to be 5 seconds ahead. So this last sector matters. We've gone into ERS deploy number 4, or setting 4, to really get the maximum power through this final section. Really difficult sector last corner. Actually nailed it quite well. A little bit of a moment through the final corner. As we come up to the line, it's going to be a good result between the two of us. For Haas, 7th and 8th. Is it going to be 7th and 8th, or is it going to? Oh, it's going to be 9th. So ultimately, we didn't do quite enough, but it's going to be a good points result on our first race.
How did they manage to achieve this win?
I'd say it was down once again to good, consistent drive.
Ferrari do it again.
Okay, so here are the results. and it was actually really close. Myself and Perez finished within about 0.2 of a second after that 5-second penalty, so I just lost out. But no worries, there's still a double points finish on our opening race, and Haas 5th in the standings, not too bad a start, and I think we'll be trying to challenge for that 4th place best of the rest. So that is it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.